Jules, welcome to Let's Talk. You are a mother of 4 children and you have fostered 31 children in your lifetime. Just tell us, to start with, how it is that you first became a foster mum.
I only realised the other day that that story actually goes back to when I was about 15 and I was a bit of a teenager in crisis, and I had a worker sort of nudge me. She basically cared for me and showed me, I wasn't being neglected at home, but I just needed someone who got me, and she got me. And I remember at that point thinking, whatever I do when I grow up, I want to look after kids who don't have that. And so it sort of inspired something. And then when I had my son and I left quite a violent relationship, and he was 2 at the time, I ended up working in child protection, and I guess I just saw the need. I didn't want him to be an only child. I saw that there were kids coming through the door. Yeah, it just evolved. It was never meant to be as big as what it got to. It wasn't a well thought out plan. Nothing I've ever done's been well thought out.
We're going to have to go back to the start then, because there are so many. I've got so many questions for you. Like, there's just so much in that story.
Okay.
You had a child at 21.
Yeah.
And you were in a violent relationship.
Yeah.
So you were a victim of family violence.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that about?
I was really young. I was also probably before I fell. It'd be fair to say I was a drug addict and an alcoholic before I met my son's father. And so my decision-making skills were not fantastic.
From what age were you?
17 till 20, till I fell pregnant. So I met him at the ski fields. I was running a bar. He had blue eyes and dark skin. I didn't see much past that. I was pregnant within a few months of meeting him. And it all looked fantastic on the outside, but pretty much after I got pregnant, it started to get quite ugly. I had my son. I attempted to try and make the relationship worse, and it just went downhill and downhill and downhill.
And how violent was he?
The worst one was getting run over by a car. He tried to kidnap my son. He was in a bit of a rage and he took off. My son was about 6 months old and he threw him in the car. And I ran out trying to get my son off him, and he reversed the car up and I was in front of the car and he hit me and I went under the front wheel. And the police ended up having to track him down and bring my son back. And that was sort of pretty much where I pulled stumps on things right about there. And everyone knew what was going on. And I knew they knew, which made it even worse. So, yeah, so I left. I actually ended up escaping in the middle of the night with a baby and a bag of clothes. And I remember getting to the highway near Grafton and thinking, I know Melbourne's that way and I know Lennox Head's that way. My best friend's at Lennox and I don't know which one's further. That's how little I knew. And so I thought, I think Lennox is a little closer, which, you know, about 20 hours. So I turned left and arrived at my girlfriend's in the middle of the night, and there started my journey in Lennox. And I actually had my first, I moved in and got my first foster daughter then. She was 16, Sam.
And how did Sam come into your life?
She was my best friend's daughter's friend, and she was in not a great foster care situation. And I was about to move into my own with my son, and I was a bit overwhelmed, and they said, will you take Sam? And I, you know, sure. You know, well, I'm in such a great situation, why not? And in hindsight, I was like 6 years older than Sam, and there I was parenting this kid who was not much younger than me. It was, we've laughed about it. I've just recently got back in contact with Sam, who now has a 7-year-old daughter of her own who's just gorgeous, and she's a fantastic mum, and, you know, I adore her. So that's a bit special.
What a great outcome.
Yeah.
We know there's, nearly 50,000 children in the system needing foster care, and we know how difficult it is to give children permanency in this country. But how does it happen for you? You're a single mum. You're probably not earning a lot of money. How is it that you were the go-to woman in that area for little children?
I guess there are so few go-to people. That's the problem. You know, we live... The amount of people who come up and say to me, I'd love to do foster care, I've always thought about it. If you're not going to continue on the conversation, please don't bother starting it. If you want to do it, do it. You know, there's so few carers. You know, it's different now because they don't allow you to do that now, but when I was working in child protection, on a Friday afternoon there'd be kids falling asleep under their desks. There'd be kids everywhere, and we'd be on the phones trying to find places for them, and a lot of times it was, so I'd load up the 4-wheel drive, I'll just take, you know, however many I can fit, and end up with a house full for the weekend or a week or a month or however long it took. But there's still the carers that are there have got 10, 12, 14 kids, you know. There's so few carers, and And then you've, you know... And
So that conversation when someone says, I've thought about that, that
Yeah.
must be so annoying for you.
Yeah, well, there's one situation, just before I went on Masterchef, my neighbour came over, a single woman, she's about 50, and she said, I've always wanted to foster, can you give me some contacts? And I sort of went, yeah, sure, you know. And she asked a few questions, the usual questions, and I didn't think much more of it. Anyway, I got back from Masterchef, and out the front, in this little one of those enclosed trampolines, was this little 2-year-old jumping, and I went, is that? And she went... And I was so stoked because it's the first person who's actually followed through of all the people. And unfortunately, when I say to people what stops you, it's the system. They don't want to get caught up in the system.
A lot of people say to me that they don't do it because they don't want their own children, ruined?
How do we teach our kids resilience if we don't expose them to life? And do we keep them in a bubble and keep the ones who get the mistreatment over there? It's a discrimination. And the reality is they're kids. They're little kids. You bring them into your home, you give them what you give your own children, and they respond in the same way. It's not a... Yeah, I get quite frustrated at that. The most difficult of all the children I've raised is my own. His behaviour's been far worse than all the rest. He's done all the things that normal kids do. You know, it's not fair to attach that to a child because of what their journey's been, to go, they're going to disrupt my kids. Yeah, they might, but your kids will be okay, and they might actually learn a thing or two that might set them in good stead for life. Like resilience, for example, like dealing with difference, like dealing with upheaval. You know, I can't stress, and every time a kid came in, our dynamics would get thrown. And it would take literally 12 months for the dynamics to shift back into where they were meant to be. So what? Now my kids can deal with change. Now they can deal with something if it comes out of the blue.
I remember you talking to me about the space. You had no space, that you had all these children everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Well, I had
the
a
lights out.
2-bedroom unit and I've got 4 kids, so...
Say that again.
I've got a 2-bedroom unit with 4 kids, so they just fit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you put them, it's what you give them. We had a room, so we nutted it out together. It was, in hindsight, the best thing, you know, and that's, the kids are all just sort of leaving home and leaving the nest, and that's what they're missing the most, is the lounge room. I miss the lounge room, I miss being with everyone, and there were times when I did a lot of walks on the beach, just, oh my God, but it was also, nothing makes me happier than just sitting back on the couch and watching this patchwork quilt of a family come together.
You're a mum at home watching this interview right now, and you've got a teenager who's giving you grief. What's your advice?
2 of my stellar pieces of advice is, 1, don't take it personally. It's not about you. They don't behave the way they do to affect you. They behave the way they do because of what's going on for them. Really important to remember that. It's got nothing to do with you. That's really hard to cop sometimes. And the other one is, love them most when they least deserve it. And that's a head twist. But it's true, because when they're pushing that hard and they're acting out that much is when they need fresh sheets, their favourite dinner, chocolate ice cream movie night, lots more cuddles.
It does sound, though, that you have given and given and given. Do you ever run out of the capacity to continue to give?
Yeah, look, there probably has been, I was going to say no, but, you know, let's be honest, there's probably been a couple of times where, especially when I had a lot of kids and working full-time and single mum, and that I'd just go, there's nothing in the tank right now. I haven't got anything, and you've got to pull. As a single mum, you've just got to dig deep from somewhere. Something. I ran away from home once. I said, I just ran away. The kids rang and said, where are you? I said, I've run away. They didn't particularly care because they got the house themselves and they were obviously planning some huge party, so I had to go home. But I remember that tantrum, just thinking, I'm leaving home. I've had it. Yeah.
You know, the saying is that if you live your life like you've lived it, then it comes back to you.
The misconception is, with that saying, if I give a lot, I will get back. People often assume that's going to be in a financial way or in an abundance way or in a this way, and it's not. It's the little things. I am so well looked after in my life with the little things.
How?
Well, Indy just sent me a text saying she just got her first job, and I was the first person she told. People... I just feel like I get well looked after. I feel like, you know, none of my kids are dying. None of my... I'm not sitting by a hospital bed. I'm just... Things just flow. I don't doesn't need to be huge, but I feel like I get looked after. I've got an incredible family.
You have got an incredible family and you have created it single-handedly through enormous amounts of hard work.
Yeah, but they're incredible. That's not all me either. Like I was thinking, the question I was asked before is, what's your greatest achievement? And, you know, the generic answer would be on my children, but they're their greatest achievement. That's not my achievement. I was like the buffer in a bowling alley. I helped them get there, but they're their greatest achievement. They're astonishing. You know, I definitely propped them up along the way, but they did the work, not me.
Jules Allen, it is an absolute privilege to know you. And it's,
Thank you, Helen McCabe.
It is an absolute privilege to know you, and it's lovely that you've been able to talk to us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.